Borrowed lips at the Blue Room. I noticed it because the scarf didn't belong to winter. It was summer dark and whisper soft, a strip of midnight silk curled inside my jacket pocket like a secret that had learned to breathe. It smelled like orange peel and smoke the way some clubs do, sweet at first, then a shadow later. I tugged it out, the fabric pooling in my hand, and for a moment I just let it slide across my fingers, feeling how carelessly intimate it was to be touching something I had not earned. Maya was in the bathroom singing under her breath, a tune I recognized from an ad she'd been producing. She works in campaigns, storyboards, shoots, nights that run into mornings with the kind of people who speak softly but invoice loudly. She stepped into the bedroom in one of those camisoles that turns ordinary light into an accomplice. There was shimmer pressed into the delicate arches of her collarbones, and the sight of her still made my hands think of all the times they'd learned her, slow and certain. "What's that?" she asked, tugging a comb through her hair. The silk made a little sound as it settled on my palm. "I thought it was yours," I said. "Found it in my jacket lining, could be from the studio." She shook her head, laughing. "You wish I had taste that expensive." "You do," I said, because it was true, because a compliment was a small thing to give to somebody you wanted to keep. Maya crossed the room and stood close enough for my heart to forget its lesson plan. She smelled like sleep and lemons and something awake. "It's not mine," she said gently. "You sure it's not from one of your late-night sessions?" "I haven't had any," I said. "I'm a sound engineer at small places that think they're big, recording live sets, sweetening the edges so the brass doesn't bite." The coat had hung backstage at the Blue Room, a jazz club with velvet banquettes and a staircase that looks like a promise. I thought of the crush at the bar, the way people lean into each other when trumpets climb, how easy it would have been for a scarf to slip into a pocket. Still, the way it had hidden in my jacket felt deliberate. "Maybe it's cursed," Maya teased, then slid her arms around my neck. The silk of her camisole brushed my wrists, and the reflex to pull her even closer felt like a right I had earned 1,000 times and never once deserved. We kissed, the kind of kiss that brings the past along by the hand and invites the future to sit and watch. Her mouth changed softly, the way you change gear when the road leans. When she pressed against me, the room seemed to hush and lean in, as if it could learn something from two people who knew what a yes should sound like. We broke apart only when the kettle began to howl in the kitchen. "Coffee," she said, laughing, breath still warm on my lips, "or we'll never make it out alive." I set the scarf on the dresser. It slid as if escaping. The whole day it lurked in the back of my head. On the train, I caught myself fingering the lining of that pocket, as if the jacket itself might confess. By noon, the first message arrived. "Unknown number, you found it. Good. If you want to know who wore it last, meet me at the Blue Room at 9. Corner table, under the mirror that pretends not to watch." I stared at the text until my phone went dark, and my reflection looked like a man who needed a word with himself. I typed, "Who is this?" The answer was quick as a heartbeat you didn't expect to notice. Someone who stopped pretending. "Come if you've stopped, too." I didn't tell Maya. Not because I planned anything. Planning is an arrogance I rarely afford myself. But because there is a kind of truth you test before you name it out loud. She texted me at 7, a photo of her in a blazer I loved, hair swept back, a caption that read late night edit, "Don't wait up." A heart. I held my phone too hard and the train lurched like it had taken a side. The Blue Room drowns itself in good shadows. The host knows me by my work name, Eli, the one stamped on the invoice, and nodded me toward the corner. The mirror there opens the room like a secret door. A woman sat beneath it, back straight, one ankle crossed over the other with ballerina certainty. She wore a dark dress that didn't shout about its cost and a suede jacket that knew how to leave. Her hair was a spill of brown waves caught in a clip, and there was something about the way she looked around, slow, assessing. That made me think of people who build things for a living and take them apart when they don't work. When she saw me, she softened, but just a little. "You're Eli," she said. "I'm Rhea." The name fit her mouth and the dress. She nodded to the scarf draped over her purse. "My scarf, if something can be yours when you didn't earn it." She touched it with one finger the way you touch a bruise to see how serious it is. "I'm guessing you found this in a place it shouldn't have been." "In my jacket," I said, "under my roof." Rhea tilted her head, and the mirror doubled the gesture into a choreography of suspicion. "Mine vanished from my car 2 weeks ago," she said. "The night my fiancé said he was sleeping at the office to finish a pitch. He works with your wife, Maya." The word fiancé arrived at the table like a third person with expensive perfume. My mouth turned dry. "Julian," I said. I'd met him at a shoot, all clean lines and laughter, the kind of man who looks like you could lean a life against him. He and Maya had traded jokes across the room like stones they polished with practice. Rhea watched my face like it might give her instructions. "He's allergic to jazz, Eli. The only reason my scarf would take a date night here is if it wasn't with me. I thought I was paranoid until I checked our cards." She slid a folded receipt across the table. The Blue Room logo bloomed in blue ink at the top. 2 cocktails, 2 plates, a midnight timestamp. The signature, a lazy J, leaned toward the edge like it had somewhere more exciting to be. It felt like the room tilted just a fraction, as if a boat shifted its weight. I said, "Maybe it was a team thing." "Then why the corner table?" Rhea asked. "Why the mirror that likes to pretend it's not looking?" We sat with the question. The band eased into a slow number that practically begged bodies to reconsider their distance. People did, in that soft way adults have when they're pretending the night is an alibi. Rhea looked out into the room, her eyes moving over shoulders and shirts like a codebreaker. "I don't want to make a scene," I said. "I want the scene to tell us who we are," she said. "That's different." We didn't have to wait long. At 9:22, the door side open. Julian walked in wearing a navy jacket that forgave him for anything. Beside him, Maya, hair down, blazer off, the delicate chain at her throat catching light like it had plans. They didn't touch, but the space between them was attentive, like a hand that hadn't decided what it wanted yet. Rhea's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Mine flattened on the table. We watched as they took seats, same corner, 2 tables over, the mirror kindly offering us an extra angle. A server arrived and they leaned in, speaking into the soft geography between mouths and menus. If someone had looked only at their faces, they could have called it work. The trick with almost cheating is how expertly it camouflages itself as productivity. But I know the muscle in Maya's cheek that jumps when she's trying not to laugh. I know the way her throat tilts when she's flattered. I watched those tells perform for someone else. "Let them have their play," Rhea said through her teeth. "Let's see how far the scene goes if we don't interrupt." That's when an idea arrived wearing the wrong shoes. I stood and held out my hand. "Dance with me," I said. Rhea raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "I want them to see what they're doing by seeing us not doing it," I said. "Or the opposite. I don't know. I just know I can't sit another second being furniture." We stepped into the slender aisle between tables. No dance floor, no permission, and let the music decide what we'd be. I placed a respectful hand on Rhea's waist, and she placed hers on my shoulder with a pressure that said, "Not mine, not yet, careful." We moved slowly, the way people move when they haven't decided if they're moving towards something or away. Her perfume, Something green, not sweet, stood up on its toes and introduced itself. When I spun her, the hem of her dress brushed my leg like a secret testing its voice. Around us, conversations softened into applause. I felt Maya looking at me before I saw her. When I glanced over Ria's shoulder, there Maya was, watching with a concentrated little smile, like a person who has recognized a song in a place that doesn't play it. Julian studied the ice in his glass hard enough to reinvent it. The number ended, and with it the logic of letting them watch. Ria and I crossed the gulf between our table and theirs, each step a rehearsal of not being dramatic. Maya sat back, letting her eyes travel from my shoes to my throat and then landing on my mouth like a punctuation mark. She spoke first. She always does when the room needs a leader. "We were going to call you," she said, "to see if you wanted to join." "Join what?" I asked. My voice surprised me by working. "Brainstorm," Julian said, too bright. "Late-breaking concept. The campaign needs a mood." Ria set the scarf gently on the table between them. "Does your mood smell like my closet?" Maya's face did a strange thing, like someone pulled her smile by a thread and it came away different. She looked at Julian. Something passed between them. It had weight and history and the exact temperature of a mistake. He cleared his throat as if it were a task. "We were talking," he said. "Talking." "Talking is a door," Ria said coolly. "What were you trying to walk through?" Maya's eyes found mine, searching for the version of me that would make this easier. She didn't find him. "Eli," she said, "nothing happened." "Yet," I said, "it wasn't an accusation. It was the most accurate word I had." We four migrated, awkward and gorgeous as a wreck, into the hallway near the restrooms where the sound of the band came thin through the wall. A woman passed us with a laugh like sleigh bells and stopped when she saw the theater we were improvising. She vanished, kindly, into the powder room. "I felt seen," Maya said simply. "I came alive in a way that has nothing to do with love and everything to do with the mirror in my head. That's not an excuse. It's me telling the truth before it becomes something there's no coming back from." Julian held up his hands like a man surrendering to an audience. "I let it get cute," he said. "I let myself enjoy the idea of being the man someone risked a rumor for." Ria stared at him long enough to wring water from stone. "Do you want me?" she asked. "Or do you want what I make you feel like when I'm not looking?" He had the decency to bow his head. "I want us," he said softly, and for once I believed him, not because of his mouth but because of the way his shoulders slumped like furniture finally admitting gravity. Maya touched my sleeve. Not my arm, not my hand. The sleeve, like she'd chosen exactly how much skin she was allowed to ask for. "Tell me what you need," she said. I took a breath that tasted like limes and the complicated middle of something. "I need us to say the quiet parts loudly," I said. "I need us to name the empty places before we try to fill them with a stranger's laugh." "And now," Ria asked, voice softer, "for tonight." "Separately," I said. "We go home separately. No more stolen corners, no more mirrors." Ria nodded. Julian, relieved and chastened, squeezed her hand the way men do when they have run out of speeches. Maya looked like the kind of beautiful you only get when you're worried you deserve less. "Come home?" she asked. "Later," I said, "after I stop shaking." Ria and I walked out into the street because air is a thing you only respect when music stops. We didn't talk at first. We just let the city's warm noise fill in the outlines we couldn't. Under a streetlight, she faced me. Close now, the flecks in her eyes were the exact color of rules being rewritten. "You handled that like a gentleman," she said, "which is irritating because it makes me want to be one too." I laughed, and the laugh became a sigh before it realized it wasn't allowed. It felt ridiculous to be thinking of the way her mouth might taste when our hearts were busy learning a new arithmetic. And yet, I was human in my skin, and it felt good to be seen as something that could be wanted without being consumed. She stepped closer, just one half step, and if we were characters in a song, this is where the strings would hold a note. Her palm found my jaw. It was a careful touch, like a key resting on a table before either of us decided whose door it matched. I bent, we kissed, brief and slow, a promise that refused to graduate into a plan, and then we stepped back like people who believed in breaks. "Thank you," she said, smile crooked, "for not making this uglier than it needed to be." "Thank you," I said, meaning it everywhere. We went our separate ways. I walked the long way home, letting the city tutor me in not rushing toward or away from anything. The apartment smelled like Maya's lotion, and the lemon cleaner she swears does half the work just by being called lemon. She was on the couch in a robe, hair down, a glass of water sweating on the table. She patted the cushion beside her without touching me. "I wanted to call," she said, "and then I remembered your face and decided to wait." I sat. Not touching is an art. It requires faith in a future that includes touching again. "I'm not leaving," I said. It surprised us both. "But the floor's going to be marked for a while. Blue tape across the places that tried to swallow us." "Okay," she said, watery laugh. "Will be a renovation show. Demolition day for my ego is overdue." We talked, not like saints, like people. I told her I'd gotten lazy with my adoration, how sometimes I let my eyes stay on my own work too long. She admitted she had auditioned for a role she didn't actually want to play. We negotiated edges, set up small rituals to make us visible to each other again. Breakfast even when the morning hated us, a rule about not letting praise go unspent, a pact to confess cravings before they learned to lie. When I finally reached for her hand, her fingers came to meet mine as if we'd been practicing. In the quiet of our living room, we kissed the way busy people kiss when they've reached the part where clock hands go slack. It wasn't a movie. It was something better, deliberate, tender, a study in letting hunger be a conversation instead of a thief. We didn't undress in a hurry. We didn't need to. The intimacy was in the deciding, in the way her breath slowed under my mouth, in how we stopped when eyes asked for it, then started again with that patient, smiling courage we'd earned. The night folded itself around us, and if the city had been listening, it would have learned a quieter kind of jazz. In the morning, the scarf lay on the dresser where I had left it, a ribbon of trouble behaving. I folded it once, then again, and slipped it into an envelope addressed to Ria with a note that said simply, "Found." I placed the envelope by the door alongside my keys, the ordinary tools of staying and returning. Weeks later, I saw Julian at the Blue Room, sitting alone, tracing the rim of a glass like it owed him an answer. He raised his chin when he noticed me, an apology built into the tilt. I nodded back. The band picked a ballad. The room inhaled. On the way out, I passed the mirror that pretends not to watch and caught us both, me and the version of me I might have become, and I went home. Maya was on the balcony, hair in a knot, reading marginalia into a paperback she'd rescued from a neighbor's moving box. I came up behind her and slid my hands around her waist, felt her lean back into me. We stood there until dusk decided to become night, the air tasting like rain and gratitude. "What?" she asked, smiling at the purple clouds. "Nothing," I said, "everything." Inside, our kettle began to sing for us again. We went in. The tape on the floor was still there, bright and honest, and we stepped over it carefully, the way people do when they've decided to stay.